The granddaughter of migrant farm workers from Texas who moved to Wisconsin to pick cherries in search of a better life, Cristina Gonzales comes from a long lineage of those who work with their hands. With her two hands, Cristina has worked to create a career and a life for herself and her son in Portland, Oregon, as the founder of Gonzales Wine Company. As a Latina winemaker, she strives to serve and inspire underrepresented communities.
Thank you so much, Cristina Gonzales, for joining us here in AwareNow to share your story and to share this space with us. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I am super stoked about this, and really happy to reconnect with you after so many years.
Yeah, like better than a decade. So really excited about this conversation today. Let's just start out by talking about passion, because every passion stems from a story. Now, when it comes to your passion for wine, Cristina, please share the story about the bottle of Malbec paired with an Argentinian steak in South America that started all of this for you.
Yes. So I got my start, everything kind of started with my background, really. And that kind of starts with family history of my dad's family was a migrant farm working family from Texas. So they were there before the border crossed them, originally from a border town, Piedras Negras, in the state of Coahuila. And we still have relatives that are in Texas around Colorado City, and Lorraine, Texas. So they started down there as cotton pickers, picked watermelon, basically whatever was in season. And my grandpa and my Uncle Henry moved their families to Wisconsin. Basically, they migrated there to pick cherries and ended up staying because work and wages were better. But within that, Wisconsin and Milwaukee is a very segregated city. There's still a lot of racism and discrimination. Granted, it is more diverse than Oregon and Portland here. But so during that time was a time of assimilation. So language was lost between my generation and my dad's. So my dad only spoke Spanish with his parents, and we as grandkids always heard Spanish at grandma and grandpa's house, and we're immersed in the food and more Mexican American culture, I would say, or Tejano culture, and but we never learned it. So that was one thing that was really missing as far as who I was. And so in college, I just decided to major in Spanish and International Studies. And the cheapest place for me to go was South America. It was cheaper than going to Mexico City. And so I ended up in South America studying abroad. Loved it so much that I went back as a backpacker and ended up in Chile and Argentina. And it was during those times when we would have to go and renew our tourist visa from Chile. So we'd take the bus to Mendoza and go wine tasting. And so during that time is when I started, because I was over 21. Not that really matters too much down there, but at that time we started drinking like a lot of box wine, and just drinking wine in general. And I was like, oh my God, this is really good. And I've always loved food. I've always loved to cook. That's like one of my love languages and the way I show love. And so when we were in Argentina just one weekend in Mendoza, we went out to eat, and it was at one of the parias, and you literally like look at the map of the cow and pick out your cut, and there was never there's this whole notion that it's got to be that one bottle for a winemaker. It was never that one bottle. It was the whole experience that I had. So, I mean, I literally can't tell you what bottle of Malbec that is. It was a carafe of Malbec at the table that I had with my filet mignon. And it was just the whole sensory experience of, being with friends, the music, the smells, and that alchemy of the food and wine. And that's what really sparked the passion of wine, and was basically, part of the main motivator and stoked my curiosity of wine production. And so when I moved back to the United States, that's when I started really getting interested in wine and started asking questions. My parents now live in Santa Rosa, California, which is Sonoma County, and so that's prime wine country. And yeah, so then I just started to work in a tasting room and kind of worked my way up the ladder from there.
That is awesome. I love how you say it was that alchemy. It wasn't just that one signature bottle, but it was that signature experience that wine does offer. So converting then your passion into your profession, you wore many hats in the wine industry, as a lot of people in the industry do, before becoming a winemaker. My question is specifically about the winemaker hat that you now wear. What, of all the parts, what is your favorite part about being a maker of wine?
I guess it's like the creativity, I get to be an artist in my own way. Like, I was never, super crafty, like DIY stuff, or, drawing and painting. And so this is just like, it's kind of like my medium. It's how, I bring my gifts into the world and get to show it to other people. And I think, I'm a very independent person, and I've always been super driven and disciplined and motivated. And I get to be my own boss. And I really appreciate and value, and am super grateful, as hard as that has been, because it does take a lot of perseverance and resiliency. And, I'm broke still most of the time, but, I get to be me. I get to, make my own hours. I still get to be a mom. So the creativity side of that, and then, the autonomy and the independence of, being self-employed, really just keep me going. And, this is still something that I want to do, almost 20 years later.
And that does say a lot, right? That, because I hear the industry is, what do they say? Like, it takes a fortune to make it's pricey. I
mean, you got to start out rich to be in this industry. That's really, like, we're in an industry where, like, your overhead costs are ginormous. And, this industry, I would say, as we're moving, into modern day winemaking and wine industry, it's not made for, low income entrepreneurs. It is made for people who come from money and who have money, or in a wine family. So there's a lot of adversity there. And it takes a long time. But this is what I want to do. And so I keep going.
I love it. And to your point, 20 years later, you still want it. You still thirsty for it. You still have that fire. So it's not easy, right? So being a female winemaker isn't easy. Being a single mom isn't easy. That being said, being a single mother who is a winemaker is not easy. It can't be. What, at that intersection, when it comes to that of winemaking and parenting, what has been the most difficult for you, Cristina?
Childcare. Trying to find childcare is by far the hardest part of all of this. Still, it's constantly a struggle to find something, because we're not by family. So like I'm lucky that my parents will come up for part of harvest if they can and help. And so that's really helpful because, they can help and it's free. And, my co-parent has increasingly become, more agreeable to, helping out on times when I'm in harvest mode, and we don't have any grandparents around, because that cuts costs for both of us. But yes, that has been probably the hardest thing, is to juggle how I'm going to go haul grapes that are, it's a 7-hour round trip for me to go pick up grapes in Washington. And then how am I going to get back and process this? And if it's my week, then how am I going to pick him up from, we're lucky to have aftercare after school, but how am I going to pick him up? Who's going to pick him up? If I've got to work a late night, who's going to feed him dinner? So that, I think, has been one of the biggest things. He's able to be with me at the winery now. And so, I don't feel so much as this like, oh, I'm not spending time with him. Like, this is our family business. And he literally has his own label. He has his own wine, which you're drinking right now. So, he can share into that. But yeah, it really just has been childcare and the cost of childcare as well.
Yeah. So let's switch gears for a moment and just talk about values. Here enters, and I'm not going to say the name of the organization properly, please. So if you wouldn't mind to share its name, it is an Oregon nonprofit working to empower vineyard stewards. And it is called?
It's called AWARE. So AWARE is an acronym for Asociación Hispana de la Industria de Vino en Oregon y Comunidad. So that is Hispanic Association of the wine industry in Oregon and in the community. So our organization was founded in 2018 by Jesus Guillen, Sofia Torres McKay, and Miguel Lopez. They basically were colleagues and friends, Latinos, and saw our people, our vineyard stewards, who are predominantly Latino and mostly Mexican and indigenous Mexican and in Central America as well. But saw our vineyard stewards in the vineyards and wanted to do something. These people, are the reason why we are able to make wine. And so they wanted to do something to acknowledge, to, show respect and recognize the hard work that our vineyard stewards do and our farm workers do. And so they decided to start AWARE, which is, like you said, a nonprofit here in the Willamette Valley. We provide a 16-week education program through Linfield College and Chemeketa Community College to give them college-level courses taught by bilingual professors. And they learn about all the whys of what they're doing in the vineyard and what happens after grapes are picked, because many of these vineyard stewards, both men and women, have never been given the answers or the opportunities to ask questions and the reasons of why they're doing, why we're shoot thinning, why are we pruning, why are we dropping, clusters, why are we doing, estimates out in the vineyards. And so we are giving them those answers to the whys. So they will, they go to class once a week for, like I said, 16 weeks. It's all day. And they're learning new vineyard practices. They'll go into the winery. We do field trips to different vineyards, to different wineries, and then they're learning about the business aspect of it too, and the hospitality side, how to open a bottle of wine, how to taste, how to smell. And they're allowed to get their server's permit here in Oregon. If they want to, we offer a WSET level 1 program, and it's basically just giving them the knowledge to know that if they want to do something outside of the vineyard, that there are opportunities and resources and people willing to help and support them.
Such a fantastic program, and to really be able to give them the opportunity to fully understand, appreciate literally the fruits of their labor. Mm-hmm. So absolutely needed. And something that you mentioned on your website about it is that, before the work in the winery happens, it's the work in the vineyards. And without that, there is no this. Yep. So to really just, as an industry, to appreciate and to recognize and to support, and how that's a win for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
So now let's talk. We talked values. Let's talk vino. Let's talk specifically about
the revolutionary.
Revolutionary. So 2002 rosé. So something that perhaps we didn't know about Petit Verdot is that it can be unexpectedly elegant. Mm-hmm. Case in point with this bottle of wine, especially when topped with a touch of Gewürztraminer and Riesling, as you so beautifully have done. So my two questions, and you hinted a bit mentioning your son, the inspiration, the story behind this bottle. Let's start there. The story behind this bottle.
So I started the Revolutionary label when Julian was born in 2014. And it all really just started with a small block of Petit Verdot that I had found on a vineyard where I was getting grapes when I was making wine in California. And I just wanted him to have a birth wine. I had never worked with Petit Verdot before. I actually knew very little about the grape itself, besides that it was a blending grape, just like Malbec was. But a lot of my winemaking style is very much just like, well, let's just try it and see what happens. And that's basically what I did with the 2014, the first vintage of the Revolutionary. And as it aged and matured in barrel, it just turned out to be this lovely and, like you said, elegant wine that kind of just, blew my mind. And so then I just decided to keep on going with it. But in that process, I wanted to represent where Julian was born. And so that's where the picture of Emiliano Zapata comes in. So when I left basically the wine industry for it was just like a year where I didn't make wine while I was pregnant, but we moved to Chiapas, Mexico. And we're living there for 3 years. And so Chiapas is the most southern state in Mexico and the base for the Zapatista movement that they tried not everybody knows anymore because now it's like the 90s is like really dated, but still like relevant and not so far away. But so they tried to overthrow the Mexican government in the early 1990s. So they are still present in Chiapas. Their inspiration was Emiliano Zapata, Mexican revolutionary who fought for agrarian reform and indigenous rights. And part of the Zapatista movement's mission is to keep the land with the indigenous villages and cultures that are there. So that was important to me to have on there because, again, like I said, that's where he was born, and us, both my ex-husband and co-parent were both Mexican American, and so we wanted something that represented our heritage and our culture. And this has really morphed into a wine of respect and acknowledgement too of our vineyard stewards, like I just mentioned. Because many of them, not only do they instantly recognize the label, but many of them are Mexican and of indigenous cultures as well. So that's where the label started, and was we just did the red Petit Verdot, and then in 2020. I decided that I wanted another SKU. And so a lot of my winemaking too is also innovation and budget. Like I said, we're in an industry that's pretty darn expensive. So I try and think of ways to make more wine with the grapes I have. It was actually a suggestion of a colleague of mine when we were making wine, and I didn't have enough room in the fermenter. And she's like, "Why don't you do a rosé?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I should totally do that." So we saugnéed, 2 barrels of rosé, and that was the first rosé of the Revolutionary. Now I've done rosé in the past, rosé of Malbec. But this was the first rosé of Petit Verdot, and I was just incredibly surprised at how well it came together. And all of the white wines are fermented in barrel. They're all neutral barrel ferments and native yeast, and so I've just been very, very pleased and surprised about how wonderful these wines are coming along. And for 2022, we added a little bit, because I also love aromatic whites. So I topped it up with Gewürztraminer and Riesling, and it just added like that very nice, beautiful lift to it in the nose. So really pleased with that bottle and glad that you like it.
Well, I am pleased with it too, very much so. Yes. So, okay. So now a second part to this question is, in what ways does the wine story pair with your own story? Is there a way that it's similar to your own personal story this way?
Yes. So I think there has been a big reckoning that I've had as an adult, and also, just as growing up. And growing up personally and, growing up professionally, and really just believing and leaning into me and into myself, and knowing that everything that I need is right here, and being confident in my experience, my wisdom, and my knowledge. Now that I'm almost 20 years into this, I am feeling finally confident enough to be around the other big kids who went to university and got their degrees, and kind of did things in the traditional way, to know that my internships, my hands-on experience is just as valid as their degrees. And just as an adult and as a person, I think also going through big life changes, and coming out okay, and coming out even better than I was going into things, stronger and more secure in myself. So it's really just been a beautiful evolution, and there is this grace now, and wisdom of like I said, I have it all right here in me, and now being able to forge that path and open the doors and, build the table, not just make room at the table, but build a table for people who look like me and are from marginalized community to, know that wine is not a high-reaching goal. It's there for all of us if that's what you want. And so, not being afraid to fail and take risks and ask questions. Like, failure is probably one of the best things that can happen to somebody. In the moment, it seems detrimental and like you're gonna die, but it's actually from failure that you learn these wonderful, beautiful lessons. And you fail, and guess what? You're still okay. So I think that's some of the big things for the intersectionality of wine and my evolution as a person.
So beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So we'll end this way. For those who want to do something revolutionary in the wine industry or just in the world in general, what advice, Cristina, from your lived experience, what advice do you have? What does it take to make it?
There's a little bit of grit, a dash of grit, a couple teaspoons of perseverance, motivation, discipline, and, bravery. And again, like I just mentioned, that whole, not being afraid to fail. And, a huge thing that I never did, that I really wish that I would have done, was ask more questions and not be afraid to ask questions, because that's how you learn. If you don't ask, then you don't know. And so, those would, those kind of, that little recipe, I think, has gotten me this far. And, not being able, you just take the risk, because like I said, the worst is that you fail, and then you learn this beautiful thing from that, and you pick yourself up, and you're still okay.
I love that. I love looking at life that way, that even the losses are wins. It just depends on how you look at them, how you take them. So thank you so much, Cristina, for taking this time, for making this fabulous wine.
You're welcome, Allie.
Thank you for helping all of us become a bit more aware now. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm, like I said, grateful and happy to be sharing my story with you today.
As am I. Thank you.
You're welcome.